So over the years of listening to hundreds of questions from spiritual seekers, it seems to me that the questions fall into two camps. One camp is the "how do I awaken?" question. What do I need to do? How do I get there? Is there a practice? Are there any pointers? I've tried so hard, but still I haven't awakened. And then the other camp is, I've had a glimpse of awakening. I even think I am awakened, but still there is pain. Still there are problems. Still I struggle. Still I suffer. The issue in both those camps is one of avoidance, one of escapism, the wish to erase the human experience through the achievement or attainment of an awakened state. That avoidance is mostly unconscious. It's not seen by the seeker, it's not seen by the questioner, and is a great impediment, a great stumbling block. What's being offered here in meetings that we offer in this way is not escapism, is not avoidance, is not transcendence, is not the erasing of our humanity, but the invitation to be fully awake and fully human. Very often, just that phrase doesn't make sense to many people. They seem to be contradictory. How can you be fully awake and fully human at the same time? Is that not a contradiction of terms? Is that not a contradiction of states of consciousness? Yes, if you equate being fully human with being lost in the world of unconscious form, unconscious thoughts, unconscious feelings, lost in the addictive cycle of egoic seeking, which is the majority of humanity. But that is not the natural state. That is the unconscious state. That is the lost state, being lost in the dream of separation. So when I say being fully human, I am not referring to the unconscious state. I'm referring to the natural state. The natural state of being human is what I talk about more and invite you into. Fully awake and fully human. What that points to is the deepest acceptance of the human condition. The human condition is one of feeling, is one of sensing, is one of being touched and touching the fabric of life. There is no avoidance in that. The invitation of being fully awake and fully human is the invitation to fall into grace whilst embracing the grit of the human experience. The invitation is to know the unbroken amidst the broken. The invitation is to dance with the waves of duality whilst drowning in the ocean of the non-dual. It's not an either or. It's not a moving from one to the other. It's not a falling into grace, into openness, into the non-dual, into the oneness, when you feel good, and then getting lost in the duality, getting caught up in the waves, when you feel not so good, when something happens that you don't like, something happens that you don't want, something unexpected, a loss, something that hurts, that brings pain, that brings challenge. It's not a flitting in and out of the two states. It's both at the same time. That's the paradox. That's the razor's edge. The invitation of being fully awake and fully human is the invitation to wake up in your experience, whatever that is, over and over again. Not waking up and experiencing a state of no pain, a state of nothing can touch me, nothing can harm me, because I don't feel anything. But a state of the deepest surrender to what is here, a meeting of reality all the way. Surrender is the key here. And surrender is what the seeking mind does not want to do. So it would rather create an image of awakening as a perfect state, a state that is elevated above the human experience, that somehow erases the grit that creates the pearl. It would rather hold on to some perfect destination and continue the seeking, to continue finding and then losing, getting a glimpse and then losing that glimpse. It would rather perpetuate that than surrender. Surrender is direct. Wherever you are, whatever experience, whatever circumstance, the invitation is always here. Surrender is not to the circumstance. Surrender is an inner falling into the unknownness. In other words, not coming to a conclusion about your experience. when experience is good, we come to a conclusion. That conclusion is usually how lucky I am that good things come to me. How lucky I am that I manifested this. And so on and so on. There's a kind of self-congratulation in that. Even though we may not say the words, how lucky I am, we're not conscious. That's what's going on. There's some kind of self-congratulatory conclusion. And then something bad happens. Well, I'm not so lucky. I'm unlucky. Poor me. Why has this happened to me? I don't deserve this. Or perhaps I've been bad and I do deserve this. And again, that's not conscious. But it's there, behind the scenes. The problem is we don't see. We don't see through our unconsciousness. We don't see what's driving our conclusion. And our conclusion is what creates our problems. Problems in life are not what happens, but it's the conclusion we come to about what happens. As long as we're lucky and then unlucky, deserving and then undeserving, rewarded and then punished, and so on, we are lost in the dream of separation. Yeah? What drives that is the core belief that here I am, small me here, and there is the big wide world, the big bad world, or the big good world, and it's doing this to me. That's separation. That's the dream. We're lost in the waves, clutching for the waves that are high, and resisting the waves that are low. Or maybe it's the other way around, I'm not sure. But there's some waves we like and some waves we don't like. Some waves that scare us and some waves that soothe us. And as long as we're clutching and pushing and resisting, we have problems. The problems are not the waves. The problem is you. The problem is you and the conclusion you come to about the waves. That's being lost. That's being a victim of life, a victim of circumstances, a victim of your feelings and thoughts. Being a victim does not mean necessarily that somebody is abusing you, that you are in an abusive situation. Being a victim is when you give your power to your thoughts and feelings about what is happening. Then you are a victim, because thoughts and feelings are like waves. They come and go. They're dual. Yeah? They live on a scale of polarity, this side to this side. That's the unconscious human state. The being fully human that I'm referring to is the feeling, the capacity, the willingness to let the waves touch you all the way, pierce you to the core. When something good happens, when something ecstatic happens, when something uplifting happens, let it penetrate you all the way. Don't come to a conclusion. That's the tricky bit. That's the habit. That's the default position. Let it penetrate you all the way. Let it pour into you all the way, no resistance. But don't follow that up with the default, where you come to a conclusion. Because that puts a boundary on it. And then you identify with yourself with that. When something bad happens, when something painful happens, when something irritating happens, when a great calamity befalls you, when a loss happens, when you hear of the suffering of the world, let it penetrate you all the way. Let it pour into you, no resistance. Don't come to a conclusion. So easy. The default position. You put a boundary around it, and you've identified with that. There you are, swinging again. Either way, let it pour into you. Let the duality of the human experience pour into you. Let it penetrate you all the way. No resistance. That's the key. And as you open more and more and more, and rein in through clear seeing, and through desire, and through sincerity, and through vigilance, and through willingness, your knee-jerk reaction to come to a conclusion, rein it in. Hold it like a wild horse. Not tightly, gently, but rein it in and stay in that tender, open space of non-resistance. You will come more and more to know grace through the human experience. Grace is the absence of resistance. Grace is not some state that elevates you above the human experience. It's simply the absence of resistance to what is here. When you've let the world obliterate you, when you've let the world annihilate you, not so that you're a victim of it, so that you are a lover of it. When you open wide in non-resistance, you become a lover of what is. That doesn't mean you like it. There's the difference. Being a lover of what is has nothing to do with liking or disliking. It has to do with openness, with tenderness, with softness, with lack of resistance, which means not coming to a conclusion. You are neither good nor bad. You are neither lucky or unlucky because of what's happening. Existence, life, is neither good nor bad, neither rewarding nor punitive because of what's happening. These are projections, ideas, beliefs that we lay onto our experience. The nature of life, the nature of existence is duality. There is nothing you can do about that. There is birth, there is death, there is up, there is down, there is light, there is dark, there is pain, there is pleasure, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. The waves of life keep going since the beginning of time until the end of time. There is nothing you can do about that. The deepest acceptance of that, not in victimhood, not in smallness, not in closing down, not in tightness, not in any way other than just non-resistance. The deepest acceptance of that, of duality, is freedom. The more you accept, the more you allow, the more you bow down to life as it appears, now and now and now and now in your experience, the more you will fall into a state of such okayness, of such tenderness, of such beauty, of such richness and depth, that all attempts to awaken in order to escape reality will be seen as childish and futile. Today, these days, it has become an imperative to really unravel and unpack what this whole spiritual thing is. Because it's no longer relevant to transcend the world. For a start, it can't happen. You can't do that. It's nonsense. You're here. You can't escape being here in this experience. It cannot be transcended through the mind. But spirituality can no longer be an escape. It's no longer about doing spiritual things. It's no longer about being spiritual so that you can cocoon yourself against the pain of the world, against the horror of the world. Spirituality won't save you. It will just imprison you. So what's happening here is not the offering of another spiritual teaching or another spiritual method or another spiritual practice in order to uphold you as being more spiritual so that you can go away and say, well, look how spiritual I am now. I'm being good, so life's going to be good to me. No, no, no. What's being offered here is a debunking of that, a smashing down of the myths of spirituality, so that who you are and how you live, how you relate to life, has something real to offer the world. Not by doing good things, although good things are more likely to happen, but by who you are. By your capacity to be absolutely present and absolutely open in the midst of the horror of life, in the midst of the human condition. Because when you live as openness, when you live as presence, not just sometimes when you're meditating, not just sometimes when you feel like it, not just sometimes when you've left satsang, but always, always, always. When you live as presence and openness always, you are the light of the world. You haven't become saintly, but something has been purified inside. Your heart starts to purify. It starts to purify because you are no longer projecting your unconscious beliefs onto the world. You're no longer coming to a conclusion about the world. And when I say the world, I mean everything. Your relationships, your work, your body, everything that you relate to, everything that you experience, as well as the global collective situation. When you come to conclusions about what you see, about what you feel, about what you experience, you are polluting the world. You are polluting the world because you're adding to the argument. You're adding to the division. When you come to a conclusion, you have to take a position. It's this position or this position. That's good or bad. It's either a good position or a bad position. You are adding to the weight of division, of divisiveness in the world. When you meet the world without division, when you simply meet the world without coming to a conclusion, there is no pollution. That doesn't mean you lose discernment. That doesn't mean you lose objective, clear seeing. When you see injustice, when you see abuse, whether it's in your personal relationship or whether it's in the wider global arena, it doesn't mean you turn a blind eye and say, well, I'm not coming to a conclusion, la la la. No, it means you see and you feel, you let it penetrate you all the way, you let that injustice, you let that suffering penetrate you all the way, so it pierces your heart open. But your heart opens and remains open. From that place, you can respond intelligently, not reactively. That's what I mean by pollution. When you react, when there's a knee-jerk reaction, a knee-jerk conclusion, that's pollution, not truth. Truth is clear seeing and the absence of resistance to what is. From that place, there is either movement, right action, intelligent response, or there is no movement. There is stillness, there is silence, and just an open heart. This changes everything. This changes you, and it changes the world. So what's being offered here? Being fully awake, fully human, and the journey of that, which has many nuances, many blind spots, many confusions, many questions. As we each go on the journey of what that means. Not as a theory, not as a practice, not as a teaching, but in your very own lived experience.